I hear gunshots.
They could hear shots outside their window, and one of them said that they could see a female laying on the ground.
She was laying kind of in a fetal position, like trying to protect herself.
And when a neighbor runs out to lend aid, she soon realizes the victim is no stranger.
Oh my God. Tasha?
She's just like, somebody shot Quintasia, somebody shot Quintasia.
19-year-old Quintasia Tate was always tight with her family.
Tasha was my firstborn. She was my oldest.
She always helped her mom out, like, with the kids and everything, especially when they were smaller.
She felt like it was her role to help her mother with her younger siblings. So she always stepped in because her mother was a single mother.
It turned out to be good practice.
She became pregnant at 14. It was a shock to the whole family.
Tasha was very scared at the moment she found out that she was pregnant.
Not knowing what to expect, not knowing how her family would look at her now or respond to her.
It took us for a loop, but I talked to her and told her it's gonna be okay. She got this, we got her.
3 years later, at just 17, Quintasia and her family got another unexpected surprise.
When I found out that she was pregnant with her second, I was happy for her, but at the same time, I'm like, it's gonna be even harder for her now.
But she's still family, and we have to take care of each other.
With her family's support, the single mom finished high school.
She was thinking about the future. She had a college plan. She didn't know what she wanted to study, but she wanted to go on to college.
However, the future had other plans for Quintasia.
It's like, oh, she's pregnant again. It just caught me by surprise. She had 3 kids at the age of 19.
And she was still a single mom.
She just ended up falling for the wrong guys. Tasha like the bad boys.
Guys, that didn't really want nothing in life.
Quintasia still did, though. And after the birth of her third child, she was more determined than ever.
She realized that I got to do something better for my kids.
She worked 2 jobs. She always was working. Always kept a job, always.
Quintasia was happy to do whatever she needed to do to take care of her family.
I admire Tasha for always making sure that her kids didn't want for nothing, they didn't need for nothing.
She put her kids above everything and made sure they had what they needed before anything else.
But she always held out hope for something more.
Quintasia was looking for love. She just wanted somebody to be there for her.
In the spring of 2019, she believed she'd found him too, when she met 27-year-old Jamichael Powell.
She told me I met this new guy, and I met him at work.
And they started getting closer, exchanged numbers, and then he started coming over.
He seemed like a good guy. He talked like a good guy.
He really seems to kind of have his act together and be really stable, which was very attractive to Tasha as she's embarking on trying to settle into adulthood. He was a grown-up, and that's where she was trying to be.
She did seem like she was in love. She was happy.
It really is starting to feel like a turning point for Quintasia.
Then in August, Quintasia landed a job at an express delivery company, one with better pay and benefits.
It would have changed her life a lot. She wouldn't have to worry about trying to work 2 jobs.
Everything was starting to fall into place for her.
You can kind of see it in her face like, oh man, this is gonna be so great. Things are gonna get better. She was really, really excited about it.
But now in the early hours of August 26th, before her career can really take off, police are dispatched to the apartment complex where Quintasia lives, responding to calls of gunfire.
When police were called out, they found Quintasia outside of her apartment, lying in the grass on her stomach.
It really is kind of a confusing scene.
There's several witnesses and other people just standing around outside.
In fact, several of Quintasia's family members live in the same complex and have already arrived. Her aunt, Lisa Giles, is the first one on the scene and quickly approaches officers to try to figure out what's going on.
What happened?
We're not sure yet. We're trying to figure everything out.
Who shot her?
We're still trying to figure all that out, okay?
Can you please tell me who shot her?
There's no immediate suspect, but investigators might not have to look too far.
Right across the street from Quintasia's apartments is a 1,000-bed detention center.
They've had people break out. The first
Inmates?
I cheated on my wife, Harriet.
You know, they be like, you created this monster. I ain't no monster.
That's when I turned to pornography.
What's really going on? Betrayal. You familiar with that, ain't you?
The energy in your conversation, the tone, is very argumentative.
After finding happiness with her new boyfriend, Jamichael Powell, single mom Quintasia Tate appeared to be getting her life on track.
She had gotten a new job. This was going to pay her well, and she was going to have benefits where she could take care of her children.
I know it would have opened many doors for her. It was a game changer for her to get this job.
I was just proud of her and really happy for her.
But now, in the early morning hours of August 26th, EMTs are racing to save Quintasia's life.
She's suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. They begin to try to work on her and get her stabilized, but it's not looking good.
I remember them stating that she was in critical condition.
There was no movement. When they was putting her in an ambulance and picking her up, there was no movement with her.
It's around this time that Quintasia's mother arrives at the scene.
I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew that Tasha had got shot. It was very chaotic.
Can her mom not go with her? No, ma'am, I'm sorry. They won't let anyone ride in the back.
They had already blocked it off by the time I got up there, so I didn't even get to see her.
Who did it? We're still investigating, okay?
They didn't say nothing. The police didn't even tell me what was going on.
Y'all don't know why she got shot. She got shot.
We just got a call about gunshots, and we came to we found her, okay? That's all we have. We don't have a suspect vehicle. We don't have a suspect.
They wouldn't tell us nothing. They just told us that we had to go to the hospital.
While Quintasia's family heads to the hospital, responding officers make sure her children are all safe.
Nobody in the victim's apartment or anything? Where her kids at?
Her daughter was already with a grandparent. The two boys were with her, with the victim. And I'm not sure which officer brought them out, but right now the two boys are in apartment 511.
After Quintasia's children are accounted for, detectives arrive on scene and immediately turn their attention to the jail across the street from her apartment complex.
There have been escapes from there before. Possibly, could someone have escaped from that facility, made his way over to Quintasia's apartment? Could that have been at the root of her murder?
In the summer, they let the inmates come out like once a day and everything to get some fresh air. And I hate it because when they see a woman over there, they start catcalling.
Sometimes you can hear them in the building. They're trying to talk to us because they hear us outside.
Could it be that someone from the detention center escaped and caused this incident?
Like, if somebody escaped, they're gonna come running to one of these apartments over here.
Detectives contact the jail about a possible escape.
They have to consider all circumstances and follow up with the detention center to make sure that everyone's accounted for.
But a bed check at the jail reveals that no inmates are missing.
We knew it couldn't have been anybody from the prison.
With a jailbreak ruled out, investigators turn their attention back to the crime scene.
We are having to make sure that no evidence is lost.
Among the first things they find are 5 shell casings from an automatic pistol.
We have found 5 shell casings over here.
It was 9mm from the cases that were located.
They also find impact markings where the bullets hit the sidewalk.
So here's going to be your strut marks, Holmes.
It almost looked as if someone was standing on the stairs and shooting down almost at an angle. So I knew at that point that my shooter had to have been in the breezeway at some point when they started shooting Quintasia.
Additionally, detectives locate Quintasia's phone, left on the grass nearby.
It doesn't feel like a robbery.
It had to be something personal just because of her phone still being on her. That's one of the first things that they normally take.
But who would try to kill the young mother of 3? Officers hope someone in the apartment complex might have an answer.
They're talking to neighbors who had assembled at the crime scene.
Neighbors tell them that they heard gunshots. They came out, they didn't see anybody running, but as they're looking around, they find Quintasia.
They thought they seen a car. They don't know exactly what kind of car it was, but all they said they heard was gunshots.
She's only been living there for a couple months, so nobody is aware of anybody that comes in or out regularly, male or female. All they see is a person constantly passing through kids.
No one really mentioned why she would have been outside. They said maybe she was just going to talk to someone that just stopped by because she didn't want to have that company and to wake up her kids.
They don't know who did it. They don't know how many people were involved. And so the neighbors' accounts didn't give police a whole lot to go on.
However, one neighbor, who is also a cousin of Quintasia's, does have some potentially useful information.
She told detectives that Quintasia was dating 27-year-old Jamichael Powell.
She's pregnant with his baby.
More importantly for detectives, according to her cousin, the pregnancy had caused trouble between Quintasia and another woman.
I don't know if this is one of his baby mamas or his girlfriend. He has like 4 other kids.
They had social media beef over the fact that Quintasia was pregnant with Jamichael's child.
She said that because Tasia had made a live about her, she wanted to fight.
It was possible that some sort of love triangle led to the shooting outside of Tasia's apartment.
Detectives investigating the early morning shooting of single mom Quintasia Tate have just learned that she and another woman had been sparring on social media over Quintasia's boyfriend, Jamichael Powell.
An ex-girlfriend to Jamichael was out here a couple weeks ago wanting to fight the victim.
The other woman had apparently been telling Quintasia that she had the relationship with Jamichael and that Quintasia meant nothing to him apart from having his baby.
It was mentioned to us that she was pregnant, but at that point, we didn't really have any confirmation.
Hoping to learn more about Quintasia and Jamichael's relationship, detectives head to the hospital, where Quintasia's family has just received devastating news.
By the time I got there, she had already passed. So I didn't get to tell her bye. I couldn't hug her.
The moment the doctor came in and told us that she had passed away,
I'm so sorry.
I remember having a sick feeling about it, not really wanting to accept it. And all I could do was just hold on to her mom, hold on to Diane, and try to be strong for her.
Quintasia's mother is still visibly shaken when detectives arrive and pull her aside for a short interview.
Detective Neighbors. She was distraught, of course. She just wanted to know who would have done this. And I couldn't give her an answer.
They was trying to get information, but I don't remember too much about that day. I tried to forget about it sometimes.
We understand that your daughter was pregnant.
Quintasia's mom does pull herself together enough to confirm that her daughter was pregnant with Jamichael's child.
She found out she was pregnant when she was 7 or 8 weeks alone. She was excited to have another one.
And what about Jamichael? Is he excited?
He seemed to be proud to be the father.
She told me he wanted it.
I think Jamichael kind of act like a proud father-to-be.
So you don't think he'd have anything to do with her death?
I don't know.
He was the typical perfect gentleman in front of us.
But while Jamichael put on a good face in front of the family, Quintasia's mother says they had also heard rumors.
I found out he was in a gang.
Quintasia's mom said when she heard the rumors, Quintasia began talking about breaking up with Jamichael.
And do you think that could have had anything to do with her death?
I'm not sure.
She wanted to get away from him, but she didn't know how to tell him that she didn't want to be with him no more. She was trying to get away from that life because she's just starting fresh at a new job.
But she was already pregnant with his baby. This what stopped her from leaving him. Whenever you get pregnant, stuff changes.
However, the possibility of a breakup suggests that Jamichael could be a suspect.
That feeling was still there. You know, something is not right.
Perhaps Quintasia finally told Jamichael that she didn't want to see him anymore, and he took it badly.
But that doesn't seem likely, due to what detectives had already learned at the crime scene from one of Quintasia's cousins.
She actually heard he was seeing somebody else.
Quintasia told me something about that. I don't know a lot about it. All I do know is that her and the other girl didn't get along.
I wanted to say it was somebody that loved him and was mad. His baby mama or girlfriend, whoever he was with around the time when he was messing with Tasia, that's who I felt like did it.
Jamichael's other girlfriend isn't the only one detectives have to consider, though. Quintasia has children with 2 other men.
One of those men could have also been unhappy since Quintasia was now having Jamichael's baby.
When detectives ask, Quintasia's mother says there's nothing there.
Everybody don't get along with their baby daddies, but Tasia never would try to hold her kids away from me. This your father. I want you to have a relationship with your father.
The fathers of Quintasia's kids couldn't have and wouldn't have done this because they loved their kids and they had a lot of love for Quintasia.
Just talking to Miss Tate's mother and other family members, I learned that everyone liked her. Everybody wanted her around.
However, one person close to Quintasia suggests that detectives take a closer look at 20-year-old Derek Jacobs, the father of Quintasia's youngest child.
I honestly felt like he had something to do with it.
According to Quintasia's sister Jada, Derek and Quintasia had a complicated relationship.
They had been on and off for a while.
Was he upset when he seen Michael with your sister?
I wouldn't be surprised.
He had really strong feelings for Tasia.
I think he really did love her.
But jealousy isn't the only reason Jada suspects Derek.
I actually saw him around her apartment last night.
When?
Like a couple of hours before the shooting.
The night she was killed, he happened to be out there. I thought it was really fishy.
Detectives investigating Quintasia Tate's murder have just identified a new person of interest, 20-year-old Derek Jacobs.
Derek was one of Quintasia's ex-boyfriends and the father of one of her children.
Quintasia's sister Jada had spotted Derek at the apartment complex just a few hours before the murder.
He never was out there any other day, so I'm just like, that's funny. He's here the night that it happened.
But was Derek still there when the shots rang out?
Police had to consider whether Derek was a suspect because he might have been jealous of this relationship she had and that she was pregnant, so that may have pushed him over the edge.
I feel like he's a different kind of person behind closed doors because she used to tell me he used to hit her.
Detectives waste little time bringing Derek in for questioning.
Police called Derek in, and he's really broken up. that Quintasia is gone.
I just can't believe she's dead.
As he talked about their relationship, you could tell that he cared for her.
Derek also says he regrets that things hadn't worked out between them.
He realized at some point that she was a terrific mother, that she had a plan and she wanted to go places. So he appreciated that and he wanted to get back with her.
Could that be a motive for murder?
Maybe he had gone out to the apartment complex that night to talk to Quintasia.
He was maybe trying to reconcile with her.
Detectives wonder if perhaps Quintasia said no to a reconciliation and Derek had overreacted.
When's the last time you saw her?
About a week ago. She brought my kid around.
You didn't see her last night?
No.
When the detectives brought up that someone had seen Derek at the apartment complex, he said he was just there visiting a friend that happened to live there.
How late did you stay?
I stayed around till 10 or so.
Derek's story fits the timeline Jada gave detectives, but they can't rule out the possibility that maybe he went back to Quintasia's apartment a few hours later.
He says that he was home alone that night, so he couldn't provide anyone who could give him an alibi.
Derek also appears anxious to point the finger at the man who took his place.
Y'all need to look at Jamichael.
Why's that?
He said that they had been fighting, according to Quintasia, and that Jamichael wanted her to get an abortion.
He said that she was into it with J-Mike. She had been for a while. It was over the baby. She wanted him to be around for the baby, and he wanted to go out and do his own thing.
Detectives aren't quite sure what to make of Derek's story.
His claim that Jamichael wanted Quintasia to get an abortion completely contradicted what they'd heard from her family.
After talking to Derek, detectives make finding Jamichael their next priority.
They gotta talk to him to hear his side of the story.
They needed to rule Jamichael out as a suspect, and they also needed him to identify the other woman who he'd been seeing and supposedly got into an argument with Quintasia.
However, all attempts to contact Jamichael fail.
They can't find him, so they began contacting his family and friends, trying to get a lead on how they may be able to reach him.
No one detectives talk to knows where to find Jamichael, but they all suggest someone who might. A woman named Nikki Riley.
Nikki came up on my radar kind of almost by surprise.
Nikki Riley is Jamichael Powell's so-called best friend.
In fact, when Nikki sits down with detectives, she tells them that she was with Jamichael the night of Quintasia's murder.
She says they rode around, did a little smoking, did a little drinking. They went to this party.
I asked, where did you go? She said, well, I went to Sasha Moore's house.
She says that she was with Jamichael that entire night, at least until 1. So she says...
included names of folks who could verify the story.
Nikki is also able to give detectives the name of the woman who'd been arguing with Quintasia, 24-year-old Heather Johnson.
Heather was Jamichael Powell's other girlfriend.
Jamichael was what is known in the hood as a player.
According to Nikki, Heather was not happy about his relationship with Quintasia. She wanted to get back with him, and she was concerned about Quintasia's pregnancy impacting that.
But it's what Nikki says next that will bring Heather to the top of their suspect list.
She threw in this very important tidbit. She said that she saw Heather Johnson and Jamichael arguing that night.
What were they arguing about?
I'm not sure, but it had something to do with him and Tasia.
Could Heather Johnson's jealousy of Quintasia have driven her to kill her?
Chattanooga detectives have just identified 24-year-old Heather Johnson as the third member of a love triangle between their victim, Quintasia Tate, and her boyfriend, Jamichael Powell.
According to Jamichael's friend Nikki, Heather Johnson was extremely jealous of the relationship that Jamichael and Quintasia had, and Heather was seen arguing with Jamichael the night of the murder.
Nikki tells police that she seemed really upset, but she said that she couldn't hear what the two were arguing about.
So police had to wonder, was Heather possibly a suspect in this murder?
After talking to Nikki, detectives track Heather down and bring her in for questioning.
I advised her of her rights, and she spoke with me willingly. And she stated, yes, I know Quintasia.
Heather didn't like the fact that Quintasia was pregnant, so they had been beefing over that.
Heather tells detectives that she wasn't anywhere near Quintasia's apartment the night of the murder, but she does confirm that she saw Jamichael and Nikki.
She stated on the 25th, the night before the actual homicide, that she was with Jamichael, and so was Nikki.
Heather says that she lent Jamichael her car that night.
She allowed Jamichael to use her car, and he took off with Nikki to another residence, approximately about 5 p.m. that afternoon.
According to Heather, Jamichael didn't bring her car back until well after midnight.
And so she couldn't tell me where they went, what they did. So at that point, I knew that her car was potentially involved and that Jamichael and possibly Nikki could have been involved, or Heather was trying to cover herself.
When detectives press Heather for more details about what she was doing that night, she shuts down and asks for an attorney.
Police had lots more questions for Heather, but they didn't get her full story because she lawyered up.
Heather isn't talking, but there may be someone who will. Sasha Moore.
Nikki told police she and Jamichael went by Sasha's house that night.
I was hoping I would be able to get something out of her.
However, when Sasha sits down with detectives, she essentially confirms Nikki's story.
Sasha told detectives that she was having a little party that night and that Nikki texted her letting her know that she and Jamichael was gonna stop by.
They showed up around 11 p.m.
Sasha said that she didn't really know who Jamichael was. She knew of him, but wasn't that familiar with him.
Sasha told me he was just an acquaintance.
However, Sasha didn't say anything about Heather being with them.
Detectives are still suspicious of the whole situation, but they'll need more information before they can move forward with an arrest.
The statements from Sasha, Heather, and Nikki all matched each other. But until they spoke with Jamichael, it was gonna be tough to get to the bottom of everything.
Still unable to locate Jamichael, detectives try another approach to figure out what happened after Jamichael and Nikki left Sasha's. Quintasia's cell phone.
We had family members that knew the passcode to her phone, so we were able to gain access to her phone.
They found social media messages where Quintasia and Jamichael had been communicating.
Looking through it, I was able to pull up the time frame on how the actual communication went down.
The messages are a minute-by-minute record of Quintasia's last hour.
Quintasia was messaging him. She was wanting to see him.
20 minutes later, Jamichael responded.
That's when he said, "I'm coming over."
She messages him back saying, "I'm outside." And this was right at about 29 after midnight. That was the last message she sent.
At about 12:30, she gets a message from Jamichael that simply says, "Walking up."
That's when the communication ends.
20 minutes after that, the neighbors heard gunshots.
To me, it just kind of cemented that if he didn't pull the trigger, whoever he was with pulled the trigger.
They have probable cause to believe that he was involved in her murder.
Problem was, they had to find him.
The grand jury is quick to sign an arrest warrant, but tracking down Jamichael is another story.
After the charges were taken out, I couldn't locate Jamichael. We looked a lot of places. We did a lot of research on him. And we went to a few places. We even had him put on the TBI's top 10 most wanted.
Quintasia's family is also determined to bring Jamichael to justice.
We didn't want her case to go cold. We didn't want him to leave the city. We was trying to get answers from everywhere. where he could be, what he could be doing, just trying to get as much information from people that we could possibly get.
We're just on edge, just wanting it to be over.
Finally, 3 agonizing weeks later, detectives close in on Jamichael.
Police get a tip that Jamichael may have been spotted in a house in East Chattanooga.
All right, we're on the way.
We've got confirmation that Jamichael Powell is at a residence, and we need to go get him now. So we met up, surrounded the house.
Jamichael Powell, this is the police department. We need you to exit the house now with your hands up.
He never came out. So at this point, we're like, well, is he there? Is he not there?
Then, in the middle of the standoff, a car drives up and a woman gets out.
Hey, what's going on?
Sasha Moore pulls up in her vehicle.
Sasha had told police that she barely knew Jamichael, that she wasn't really a friend of his.
At this point, I knew she had totally lied to me.
No, you lied to us.
I had no idea to what extent the relationship between Jamichael and Sasha was, because I knew that he had a girlfriend. He was the boyfriend of Quintasia Tate. He was also the boyfriend of Heather. And at one point, we believe he was even with Nikki. And now we have Sasha Moore in the mix. So at this point, if it was personal, I'm almost looking at it as, okay, who pulled the trigger? Okay, was somebody mad at someone else? So we really needed Jamichael to talk.
Detectives investigating the murder of 19-year-old Quintasia Tate believe they've cornered her suspected killer, 27-year-old Jamichael Powell, in a house in East Chattanooga, Tennessee.
This is the police department. We need you to exit the house now with your hands up.
Police realized that this is the home of Sasha Moore.
The police had her house surrounded when she drove up, and she demanded to know what was going on.
We tell her the situation, and she finally admits, I will get him to come out. So that's when we were able to take Jamichael Powell in custody.
Detectives also bring in Sasha Moore for additional questioning, along with Nikki Riley, who was with Jamichael on the night of the murder.
I had all 3 of them there, Sasha, Nikki, and Jamichael. Maybe I could get and piece the story together. And I went to go speak with Nikki first.
Nikki had previously provided detectives an alibi for the night of the murder.
But now detectives know that's not true.
I know Jamichael was there when Quintasia was shot.
As they let her know what they found out, that alibi begins to crack.
Earlier, Nikki said that after going to the party at Sasha's for a while, she and Jamichael just spent the rest of the evening driving around.
But this time, her story changes.
She says that they end up in Quintasia Tate's apartment complex, and she confirmed that Jamichael messaged Quintasia to come out so that they could talk.
They were supposed to talk because they had been into an argument earlier today.
Jamichael was upset about Quintasia's pregnancy. He didn't want her to have this child.
Nikki also says that she and Jamichael weren't alone when they stopped by Quintasia's place.
She now claims that Sasha had gone with them.
At that point, detectives turn to Sasha for her side of the story.
I've come to her and said, hey, you need to really get this off your chest. It's like, we know other things went down.
There's somebody else that is cooperating with it.
Okay.
She said, I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Sasha admitted that she had gone with Nikki and Jamichael that night.
He was like, we're just going around the corner, it'll be quick, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, getting in the car, and it wasn't around the corner.
Sasha explains that they had ended up outside Quintasia's apartment complex.
He just asked me, would I get out the car with him? And I was like, yeah, I'm like, where are we going? I just to go up here and talk to somebody. And by then, she was already standing outside.
Sasha says she hung back while Jamichael talked to Quintasia.
We need to talk. She says that she was in the bushes not far away as she watches Quintasia and Jamichael start to argue.
Bro, I am not getting rid of this baby. I can't handle all responsibility like
She says Jamichael walks up the steps.
That's when Jamichael pulls out a gun.
He was either standing right there in the breezeway or standing right there on the steps.
And you're not gonna have that baby. You're not have that baby. Where you going?
And I heard a gunshot. When I heard those first 2 gunshots, I took off running.
She said that they got back in the car and they drove away.
I don't know what I just witnessed. Like, this is not the person I know. Like, all these years, I'm like, are you really capable of this?
Finally, after talking to Nikki and Sasha, detectives sit down with Jamichael, who initially denies killing Quintasia.
I didn't pull no trigger.
Instead, Jamichael blames Quintasia's murder on his ex-girlfriend, Heather.
Heather, according to Sasha and Nikki, wasn't even in the car with them that night.
He has totally taken out Sasha and he's taken out Nikki at this time. Maybe he's trying to protect them. I don't know why, but I just let him go with it. He said, while I'm sitting in the car, Heather goes up to speak to her.
Well, I was like, don't do that. Let's go get me in trouble, man. Boom. She was like, all right.
He hears 3 to 4 shots, and then she runs back to the vehicle.
I'm like, what the you just do? And she was like, nothing. I was like, well, just take me back to my dad's house. That's what happened.
The detectives don't buy it.
I told him, why are you putting this on Heather? This message here, it shows you're saying, I'm outside.
This is leading up to when she was shot. Okay, this is it right here. You can't go around.
Caught in a lie, Jamichael tries a different approach.
Jamichael insists that she had been threatening to kill him and that he acted in self-defense.
And she kept, like, telling me, kept calling my phone, telling me, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna get my kill you. And I got scared. I shot her.
I had him admitting he's a trigger puller. He said Sasha never did anything, and he also said that Nikki never did anything.
Anyone else? Okay.
Once detectives have Jamichael's confession, they book him on murder charges.
When they finally arrest him, I celebrated.
But the case never goes to trial.
He was able to reach a plea agreement for second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison.
The terms of the plea deal stun Quintasia's family.
15 years is not enough. That's not just